Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. Now, first things first, I do need to send out a massive thank you to all of you guys, the viewers, the subscribers, because my channel has nearly quadrupled in subscribers in the past week. So thank you very much for all of your engagement, the likes, the comments, the shares, etc. with my last couple of videos. They've done extremely well, and I'm very appreciative of that growth. So with all that groveling out of the way, let's get into today's video. So today we're going to be talking about Oella, the upcoming Fusion champion for this month. I believe this Fusion starts next Thursday, which will be February 9th, and she is a legendary Magic Affinity support champion from the Sylvan Watchers. So looking through her kit here, we have on the A1 a 100% chance when booked to place decreased speed big version, and it can't be resisted if she's with her companion champion, whose kit we do not know at the moment. The A2 on a 3-turn cooldown heals all allies by 30% of their max HP. And on the A3, we have a 3-turn cooldown as well, fill turn meter by 30% and place increased resistance buff on all allies for 2 turns. On the passive, whenever an ally loses 15% or more max HP from a single hit, she'll place a continuous heal on them, and if her companion champion is there, then she'll instantly activate the continuous heal. I think that passive is similar to Muckstalker for himself, and then I think Jarag for the team. That's not something we haven't seen before, but it is nonetheless in her kit. So normally I like to wait until the Fusion is live to do this type of video where I go over the kit, because there's a lot of unknowns here. We don't know her base stats, so I don't know how fast she is. I don't know what her extra resistance is. I don't know what her HP or defense is. We have no idea what her companion champion does. Ultan of the Shell, from the little preview they sent on, was it Twitter or Facebook or something, their little video, it looks like he's another Sylvan Watcher as well, but we don't know if he's a Void legendary, if he's a normal legendary. How realistic is it for us to get him to even take benefits or use the benefits of the duo together? We have no idea what the Fusion epics are, so there's a lot of unknowns, and so I've always find it hard to grade them or give, judge them too early based on not having enough information. However, nonetheless, I do think, as it stands right now, I give her a solid B-, and I'm covering the aura there, but it's resistant all in dungeons by 75. As far as where she's meant to be used, which is Iron Twins and Sand Devil, I could definitely see her more as a Sand Devil champion, because when you combine the A2 and the A3, and she is a 1-3-3 or a 3-1-1 champion, meaning the 2 actives are on a 3-turn cooldown, so she'll naturally flow between the 3. She's better for Sand Devil in the sense that you can build her with a bunch of resistance, and you will permanently have increased resistance on the entire time because she extends buffs on the A2. And regardless of that fact, whether or not she places decreased speed on the A1 is irrelevant. On the Sand Devil, most of the time you can't do it unless he's asleep. So you can build her just max out resistance with increased resistance the entire time, and he actually won't be able to land the decreased accuracy, decreased speed on some of your more tanky champions. And if you pair her with someone like Pythion, for example, who is a full cleanse and block debuffs, you can also keep block debuffs up the entire time, as well as increased resistance or any other buffs you have going. So she can pair very well with a, let's call it a traditional Sand Devil team. For the Iron Twins, it gets a little bit more complicated. The same logic applies that you can pair her with a Pythion or a Brogni or a Duchess, and you can still have a permanent uptime for the buffs as far as block debuffs or increased attack or whatever, as well as her own increased resistance. So you can have, 700 effective resistance on some of your champions. But the decreased speed aspect would have been nice that it could not have been resisted without the companion champion whose kit we don't know. So that's a big minus in my opinion. I probably would have put her more closer to A or higher, A+ maybe, if it wasn't restricted to the companion ability. If she just had an irresistible decreased speed, 100% chance on the A1, then she would be amazing. Nonetheless, it's still good. It's 100% chance. It's not a 50-50 or 70 like some other champions have. So it's a really reliable. But for a fight like Iron Twins, where you would need, in order for her to work, you would need high resistance and high accuracy, it can get really tough to reach those stats. And she'd be a good candidate, though, for like the Heaven Cast Blessing, but you would need like 5 or 6 levels or 5 or 6 stars of Heaven Cast to really bring that accuracy down for her to land just the decreased speed on the A1. So it doesn't seem as practical as it stands right now, but I reserve some judgment based on the rest of her stats as well as how much access we have to the companion champion to get it to be irresistible. So that was Oella's kit. Now let's talk about how we're going to get her. As most of you already know, I do every fusion, so I do plan to go for her, even though I gave her a B-, but I'd still like to have her. In addition to Sand Devil and Twins, I think she could also be useful as a healer for Faction Wars and as far as a turn meter filler as well. So it'd be nice to kind of bank that utility in case it becomes in handy for content that exists and content that doesn't yet exist. So we don't know what else is coming down the road, and increased resistance might be more important or pertinent when that time comes. But as far as the prep and tips for that, let's talk about a handful of things, starting with the dungeons. So we do have an example here of a spider tournament that's going on right now that I'm actively working on. This is pretty standard, and you would expect that this node right here would have the fusion rare, and that's usually 2050 or 2250. For Pythion, our most recent fragment summon, all of the dungeons had it at 2250, but sometimes it's a mix and a match between the two, and sometimes it's been as low as 1850. It kind of depends on how they choose to set the milestone. In a adjacent vein, you also have dungeon divers, which is basically the same thing, where you just run dungeons to get the points. And for a 3-day event, typically that is 2850 points, although for Pythion, again, which is a more extreme example, it was 3350 for 3 days, which is more closer to the 4-day limit. And we can actually look at the current one going on right now. So this is a 4-day event, and we have the anniversary points, which is kind of that standard node for a rare or fragments, and that'd be 3750 for a 3-day event or 2850 for a 3-day event. But it could be more or less depending on how they're feeling with this fusion, so we'll kind of have to wait and see. But I would expect standard 3-day event and 2850 on the nodes. So with respect to dungeons, the only thing worth noting is that there is a difference in efficiency between stages 20, 24, and 25. You could also do 16 or 13 depending on your progression in the game, but as far as the end game is concerned, it's mainly the top 3, or 20, 24, and 25. Stage 20 offers you the most points per energy. That does include Dungeon Divers points as well as Dungeon Tournament points, so you will be more efficient with your energy doing Stage 20. However, your gear quality will suffer slightly relative to Stage 24 and 25. Stage 24 is kind of the best of both worlds, where you get slightly less points per energy, but you get a decent uptick in the quality of your gear. And Stage 25 is even less efficiency in terms of points per energy, but you get the best quality gear. So you can kind of pick and choose. Maybe your team doesn't work on a certain affinity depending on the dungeon, or you just have a preference for saving energy. You can drop down to stage 20 during a fusion and farm that and just be a little bit more efficient with your energy, or you can keep plowing ahead with stage 24 or 25 as you like and just keep doing what you do and just get the better gear. It's up to you, but those are the 3 dungeons that we typically do here in the end game. As far as general account maintenance goes with respect to dungeons and dungeon divers, make sure that you are managing your energy appropriately. So all of the refills that you get every other day, don't blow them. You know, we're a week away from the fusion, so if you can hold on to a few of them as needed, you can pop them, you know, in a week or so, and then use them for the events of the fusion. Also, we just had CVC end a couple days ago, so my plan is to claim that just like the day before the fusion, or maybe the day of, depending on how this, or depending on when exactly it ends. But so I can basically start the fusion out with 3,000 energy. So if you haven't used it yet, I would hold on to it. It's going to last for another most of a week, and so it might be there just ready in time for the fusion, depending on your local time zone. So that's a huge chunk of energy that you can start with. But aside from that, just, you know, keep track of, or keep stock of refills, and over the course of the fusion you're going to get more every other day, as well as all the daily energy you get. I prefer to stay below the energy cap, but some people like to just stockpile energy, so you could just stop playing as much over the next week or so. I don't recommend that, but you could do that and just stockpile energy and then burst it all on the first few days of the fusion. So up to you how you want to do it, but saving energy is a good way to have it ready for when you need it. And in a similar vein, gems, I exclusively use gems for energy anyways. And so I've already talked about my floor of 4,000 gems and my soft cap of 5,000. But essentially, I use gems. I think of gems as just more forms of energy. And so if you have a decent pile of gems lying around, know that that is always a reserve of energy that you could use in a pinch when you're trying to get something done on the last day of something and events have ended or about to end or something. Just keep in mind that you do have access to gems. Don't spend them on ancient shard packs or whatever that a lot of people do. So think of them as energy, and you can stretch your gems a lot further than you might think. For champion training, of course, we normally do our campaign farming in stage 12-3 on Brutal. So you just take your campaign farmer and you run up your food champions or champions you've recently 6-starred or champions you're trying to take to higher levels. So you run them through the campaign and you get the experience from that and you level them up and you head over to the tavern. And the only thing here is to make sure when you are going to feed a chicken to the next tier. So for example, here I have a 5-star chicken, just make sure you toss in a couple of brews. I usually do 4 for my 5-star and 4-star chickens, but some people do a little bit more, like up to 6 or 8, depending on the efficiency there. But just make sure you put some brews in your chickens before you feed them, because you get a lot of points, because points for champion training are awarded per level gained, and you get a lot more bang for your buck at the low levels for adding a couple of brews. You can also tell that I do use epics as 5-star chickens or 4-star, 5-star chickens. So if you do have a bunch of duplicates and your Faction Guardians are full, don't be afraid. They're already at 4 stars, so you just got to skip a whole tier of leveling and use the epics you have no plans to use as food. So don't be afraid to do that. For artifact enhancement, one of the key things to note is 1, save your silver. Don't spend a bunch of it right now, because there's going to be 1, 2, or 3, or at least 2. There's going to be at least 2 artifact enhancements in correlation with the fusion, so you're going to want to have silver available to level up your gear. And some of the methods you can do to help reduce the cost when the fusion rolls around is you can take gear that you want to take to 16 up to 15, like I have with this piece here, where I can just pay the last cost or the last level cost the day of, and I don't have to worry about the cost from 12 to 15. And so that can you're still paying the silver, you're prepaying it, so to speak, but it can help you save silver when the time comes for the actual artifact enhancement if you want to prepay some of that silver. You could also just take gear from level 12, like this piece randomly. You could take pieces from level 12 to 16, because you do get points for every 4 levels, so 4, 8, 12, and 16, with the most being at 16. So if you have the silver and you can afford to take pieces from 12 to 16, then that's the fastest way to get artifact enhancement done. But you can also go through some of your gear and say, I have a piece like this, I don't know if it's going to roll right, and I can roll it up to 4, I can roll it up to level 8, and then that will give me a little bit of artifact enhancement points, and that hit flat, so I don't want it. And so then it's like, all right, let me just sell that, and I get some return on my silver. It may not net even, and usually overall you're going to lose silver, but the point is that you got some points out of the gear piece before you sold it, and so you can get a little bit of points and just chip damage away at the requirements as you go along through the artifact enhancement. So for shards, you just need to have them. There's not much else that I could really say about that as far as preparing goes. And that's my current shard count at the moment. This weekend is a 10x that's going on right now. I'm not participating in, so I'm not pulling anything. I have no reason to do anything. I thought about going for Chalker, but 110 is way too many voids for me to want to pursue that. If it was 80 or 90, I probably actually would have done it, because he would be fun to use in Send Devil's Necropolis. But 110 is too steep, and so I'm not pulling any voids for that. But nonetheless, you want to have some voids, because 2x voids is one of the more exciting weekends that we have in the game. 2x ancients being the most exciting, in my opinion at least. But have your voids ready. You want at least 30 to 40 maybe, depending on if you get lucky or unlucky. But in addition to that, do be aware that if you have any previous fragment summon champions, most people probably have pulled Pythion by now, but if you still had Pythion saved up, you can pull his fragments. If you have epics from previous epic fusions like Negorio, or from login rewards like Lady Arash, epics are worth 250 points during a champ chase, and legendaries are worth 500. So if you have old fragment champions that you haven't summoned yet and you're really tight on voids, you can be sure you can pull some of those, and that'll help out. As well as, don't forget mystery shards, guys. It's a one point per, but if you have a ton like I do, I have over 5,000. It's a very, very painful and arduous process, but a couple of voids is worth a couple hundred mystery shards. So if you really want to save your voids for 2x voids, or if you want to save your sacreds for the summon rush, etc., you can pull mystery shards full 500, and that's a sacred shard. So you can make up a decent amount of ground just by pulling mysteries. It is painful, it does take a long time, but if you really, really want to go for fusion, or not necessarily Oella, but any fusion, that will definitely work, and it's something you can keep in your back pocket. Another way you can help save from shards is by fusing copies of Relic Keeper and or Broadmaw. As you can see here, I have 2 copies of Broadmaw basically ready to go, and I have 1.5, let's say, Relic Keeper copies. So Relic Keeper would be 250 points in a champ chase, and Broadmaw would be 350 points because he's void. So if you have all these farmable rares and uncommons and whatnot, you can fuse them in and save some shards that way, and just make the champ chase a little bit easier. It's not going to help you for the summon rush because that depends on the shard type you pull, and thus you can't use fragment summon champions or fusion champions to do those, but this is another way to help alleviate the cost of shards. And on the subject of the fusion itself, it's not live yet, but you can also use the fusion rares or fusion epics as champion chase points as well, depending on when they line up. So if you wait until the champion chase is live and you summon multiple or all or multiple of the epics, that's 250 points per. So again, that's another way that you can help alleviate the champion chase if you're trying to save your voids for some sort of guarantee or a 10x or something that you're going for. And as far as what you should be doing right now prior to the fusion, as far as what to use your energy on, it's kind of up to you, and you could do a multitude of things. If you're skipping the fusion, which a lot of people are from the polls I've been seeing, then just carry on with whatever you're doing. I'm following the dungeon or the dungeon tournaments and events, so I'm still going to be doing Spider for the rest of the evening. Then I'll start with the Dragon tournament tomorrow, as well as the champion training event that starts tomorrow, because I am a legendary tome chaser, as you guys know. So I will be trying to max this out, get all the way to the end to get the legendary tome. But that's how I plan to use my energy, and I don't mind using my gems prior to the fusion because, again, my floor is 4,000, so I'm already above it still, and I would like to also bolster my silver count a little bit more after Pythion wrecked me. So I'm down to I'm up to 17 mil now, but I was pretty broke after spending 50 mil for Pythion. So I'd like to do the combination of Dragon and Champion training at the same time, generate a good amount of silver, and be closer to maybe 30-ish mil by the time the fusion actually starts. So that's what I'm going to be doing, champ training and Dragon over the next 4 or 5 days prior to the fusion starting next week. But if you're just skipping it, then carry on with whatever you're doing, Sand Devil, Minotaur. I do like to do Minotaur as well in the off seasons like this. Or if you're just trying to compete with people and, get 6,000 points in a Spider tournament, like some people here, shout out to them. But keep doing what you're doing if you're skipping the fusion. But if you are, don't be afraid to do some of the tournaments and events prior, as long as you're not bleeding a bunch of resources that you otherwise don't have access to. Alrighty, that's going to do it for today's video. I've once again put up the infographic detailing her abilities, Oella, the upcoming fusion champion, so if you wanted to see those again for a reference. Hopefully you found some helpful tips in this video that can help you prepare for the fusion if you're going for it, and if you're not, then carry on with whatever you were doing before. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to drop a like down below, and if you enjoyed this video or others on the channel, then be sure to subscribe down below as well for more. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.